We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No, you've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky embarked on a high-stakes European tour in the aftermath of his disastrous encounter with Donald Trump. While European leaders reaffirmed their support for Ukraine, the fallout from his Oval Office clash with President Trump has sparked a storm of criticism back home. As his approval ratings take a hit, how will Zelensky navigate this challenging time for him, not just globally, but also domestically? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. March 2025 marked a crucial turning point in Volodymyr Zelensky's presidency. Facing mounting pressure from an unrelenting war, economic instability, and political uncertainty, Zelensky's diplomatic balancing act suffered a severe blow following a disastrous encounter with Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. What was expected to be a high-stakes negotiation turned into a public spectacle of discord. His visit to the United States of America was to be a reaffirmation of Ukraine's most crucial alliance. Instead, it turned into a moment of deep embarrassment for Zelensky. In an extraordinary public spat, Donald Trump accused the Ukrainian president of being ungrateful and afraid of peace, stunning observers worldwide. What should have been formal negotiations between two countries considered as allies and have been allies for years turned out to be, or looked like, at the Oval Office, schoolyard bullies who've come together to believe one kid. And that was Zelensky.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems?
With those words, Trump delivered a chilling ultimatum: accept a ceasefire or risk losing Washington's support. Zelensky, visibly agitated, fired back, insisting that Ukraine cannot negotiate without security guarantees. But the damage was already done.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait
answer?
a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
you
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your men are brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
Yes. What about West?
If you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
By the end of the meeting, a crucial US-Ukraine minerals deal was scrapped, and a joint press conference was abruptly cancelled. Despite firm support from European allies like Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron, Zelensky's leadership now faces its biggest test. As Russia mocks his predicament and Washington grows colder, one question remains: can Zelensky navigate the storm and maintain the international backing Ukraine desperately needs? In the aftermath, Zelensky turned to Europe, hoping to solidify Western backing. At a pivotal London summit, European leaders including British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and many others, including the Italian Premier, pledged continued military and financial support. The UK announced a $2.8 billion loan package, while symbolic gestures like the Eiffel Tower lighting up in Ukraine's colors aimed to reaffirm solidarity. Yet the summit also underscored the growing divide between Europe and Washington. Starmer, who has positioned himself as a mediator, sought to craft a European-led ceasefire proposal that would eventually require US endorsement. But Russia's outright rejection of European peacekeepers and Trump's unpredictable stance made progress uncertain.
Because look, the first priority of this government is the security and safety of the British people. It is the first priority. It's the first duty of the Prime Minister, and it's a duty and responsibility that I take extremely seriously, particularly, of course, in these volatile times. And that's why I went to the US to meet President Trump last week. That's why I hosted European leaders here in London over the weekend. You may have seen that. To work together for the security of the United Kingdom, of Ukraine, and the world.
While Zelensky may have found reassurances abroad, the mood in Ukraine is far less forgiving. A growing chorus of voices within Ukraine see his European outreach as little more than a desperate attempt to salvage credibility after his US debacle. A recent poll conducted after the Trump meeting revealed a sharp dip in Zelensky's approval ratings. Although his popularity has increased in some quarters, his once unshakable public support, which had soared to 90% at the start of the Russian invasion, has now indeed plummeted. Critics argue that his failure to secure clear US backing has left Ukraine in an increasingly vulnerable position. On social media, Zelensky trended, but for reasons opposite of good, with memes mocking his reliance on European leaders, while Trump's cold dismissal reverberated across news cycles. Political analysts have warned that Zelensky's diplomatic fumbles could embolden opposition voices and weaken his standing in upcoming political battles. Inside Ukraine, the situation is indeed deteriorating. War fatigue is at an all-time high. The botched 2023 counteroffensive already dented faith in Zelensky's military strategy. And now, with the US wavering on further aid, economic instability is indeed creeping in. Without American backing, the Ukrainian economy faces severe hurdles, and Kyiv's ability to sustain military operations could be at risk.
Ukraine has dismantled independent courts, weaponized law enforcement institutions, and eliminated fundamental democratic processes. There are no free elections, no independent media, and no right to a fair legal defense. Instead, a climate of fear and repression prevails. Furthermore, during Zelensky's tenure, secret detention facilities operated by the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, have emerged. These sites have been used for the illegal detention, coercion, and torture of individuals to extract forced confessions. The United Nations has documented the existence of at least one such illegal prison in Kyiv, right in the headquarters of SBU, where since March 2022, approximately 300 individuals, including US citizens, have been held. Among them was American journalist Gonzalo Lira, who was unlawfully detained by SBU officers, held under inhumane conditions, and later died in December 2023 following beatings and extortion while imprisoned in the Kharkiv detention center. I have personally been subjected to physical assaults and torture on 2 occasions in prison in an attempt to coerce me into falsely confessing to alleged connections with Russian intelligence and to admitting that my 2019 expose of the corruption of the Biden family were part of a Russian intelligence operation. The true objective was to fabricate a false narrative linking your campaign, Mr. Trump, to Russia in an effort to conceal the origins of this operation. These allegations were deliberately manufactured in Ukraine, intended to justify the the failed 51 intelligence officials letter and extend this false narrative into 2024, Ukraine has effectively been transformed into an instrument of political repression and external interference. President Zelensky and his administration act in the interests of globalist elites, Soros-affiliated NGOs and USAID-funded NGOs and media, systematically dismantling democracy in Ukraine and suppressing political dissent. Nevertheless, I remain steadfast in my commitment to justice and democracy. Despite my imprisonment, I have filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court of Ukraine, demanding the restoration of constitutional order through the scheduling of presidential elections. As a Ukrainian citizen, I have also officially declared my candidacy for the presidency. I am prepared to run as a candidate from the Party of Peace and fully support your vision for ending the war. Ukraine urgently requires a pathway to peace.
While Zelensky still enjoys support from many Ukrainians who refuse to yield to Russian aggression, discontent is brewing among those who fear he is failing to chart a viable path forward. With parliamentary elections looming, his political adversaries are seizing on the moment. Some within his own administration have begun to voice concerns about whether his continued leadership remains the best course for Ukraine. In fact, the reality is it's not just back home. Even at the negotiating table, if Trump gets Putin in a room where there are negotiations that are to be held with Ukraine, Putin in all probability will not sit across the table with Zelensky, anyone but him from Ukraine. So where does this leave Zelensky? His European tour may have secured much needed aid, but his clash with Trump exposed his growing vulnerabilities. If he cannot mend ties with Washington, D.C. and reassure Ukrainians that he remains the right leader for the war effort, his political future and perhaps Ukraine's war strategy hangs in the balance. Zelensky may have won European pledges, but can he weather the storm at home? As the Ukraine conflict drags on, his leadership is under scrutiny like never before. Will he find a way to turn this crisis around, or is this the beginning of the end for Zelensky? Thank you for watching Statecraft.